Now, the motion of this House is that this House believes that developed and developing nations have equal responsibility to prevent and reverse environmental damage. May I please invite the Prime Minister to open the debate, please? Here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker. Every individual shares equally the environment on our planet. When you see the mass cutting of trees in Amazon, when you see the smog that prevent people breathe the clean air in New York, you need to worry about it and you need to think about doing something to prevent it. When you see the wasteland, the Greenland becomes wasteland, you need to take your responsibility to do something for the environment. Because we think that the planet, the environment, belongs equally to every human being. So we share equal responsibility on this planet. Before I move to tell you why they share the same equal responsibility, I will tell you what happens in developing country and developed country. In developing country, government think it's important for us to develop economics. So they make the excuse of developing the economics and they ignore the importance of the environment. So when they ignore the importance of the environment, they pollute the air, pollute the water more and more often. And in developed country, although they produce less pollution than developing country, but they send some factories which cause a lot of damaging effect on developing country. They threw out the dirty factories to developing country for the sake of profits. So that's why we think they should share equal responsibility to prevent and to reverse the environmental problems. By saying shared equal responsibility, it's simple. If you are damaging one bottle of water, you need to protect and reverse one bottle of dirty water into pure water. So in developing country, you need to solve the problem domestically if this problem is caused by yourself. For the developed countries, if you cause some pollution and damaging effects in the developing country, you need to help them to fix the problem because the pollutions and the problems are caused by you. So you should share the equal responsibility to protect, to reverse environmental problems. So move on to the constructive speech. I have 3 arguments to support our side. 2 of them are on the principle level, and 1 is on the practical level. Firstly, I will tell you, everyone is equal when he is facing the nature, when he is facing the environmental problems. Secondly, I will tell you, everyone shares one environment. Actually, the global affection caused by the pollution in certain country actually the responsibility of that should be shared by both developing country and the developed country. Thirdly, I will tell you why developing country and developed country should collaborate with each other to solve the problems. Firstly, everyone is equal when human beings are equal when are facing the nature. Why do I say so? Because you enjoy the right rendered by the nature. When you see the clean, when you see the sunshine, when you see the clean water, when you see the green planets, it is the right that the nature renders you to enjoy. You have the right to enjoy the nature, the healthy environment. Therefore, you have the responsibility to protect them. You cannot just enjoy your right without any responsibility. So that's why we think we have the hard line that when you're when you're damaging the environment, when you cause some damaging effect on the environment, it's your responsibility to fix the problems because the rights are equally given by the nature to every human being. And second argument, because we see that sorry, later. Actually, we see that the pollution and the damaging effect caused by developing country and the developed country affect the whole earth. The polluted air in China does not only affect the living quality in China, it also affects the living condition and the quality of living in Japan, in Korea. So we think when you are harming the environment, when you are harming the equality of other countries, you should take the responsibility. So we think every our stance is clear that when you destroy the environment equally shared by the citizen, you need to take the responsibility to fix the problem, to solve the problems. Yes.
So you're agreeing that the Great Britain was 150 years ago polluting the whole world exactly the same that China is polluting right now?
Yes, because they are polluting the whole planet. That's why we wanted them to arouse the awareness of not doing so. That's why we want them to protect the whole earth. That's why we want every individual to share the same responsibility regardless of developing and the developed countries in the whole world. And thirdly, why we think the collaboration between the developing country and developed country is so important. Firstly, we have the justification. Secondly, my partner will tell you the effectiveness. Why we think we have the justification to push Western developed country to help developing country to fix the problems. Because as we see now, the mass pollution caused in developing country, actually the origin of these problems is from the developed country. They send through the dirty factories. They take advantage of cheap labor in developing country for the sake of profits. When you take use of the cheap labors, when you take use of the resources in developing country and cause irreversible damaging effects on developing country, it's your responsibility to help them to fix the problems, to correct the mistakes that you have made. So we think this collaboration also stir up awareness of the whole human beings to figure out the importance of the environmental protection, to figure out why we so urgently need the equal responsibility to protect the whole earth, our planet, to provide a healthy environment not only for the people who are living now, but also for the descendants, for the next generation. So what have I told you then? What have I told you? Firstly, everyone, when human beings enjoy the rights given by the nature, they should take the responsibility. Secondly, when your pollution actually affects other countries, you should take responsibility. Thirdly, when you pollute air in other countries, you should also take the equal responsibility. So based on these arguments, we're so proud to propose this motion. Thank you.
The speaker spoke for 15 seconds.
I'd like to then the Prime Minister for a speech. Now may I like to invite the Leader of Opposition to rebut the case, please. We're here.
So ladies and gentlemen, members and speakers of the House, so now the status quo is that now all of the developed and developing countries are facing the same global environmental problems. So the question now we were going to discuss is whether should they take equal responsibility. And here are our steps. We believe that developing countries should have as much as responsibilities as possible in preventing and reversing environmental damages, but they should not take equal responsibility like the developed countries, because now the situation in developing countries and developed countries are completely different. Under different circumstances, why should they take equal responsibilities? So I'm going to further illustrate that point in my argument. But first of all, I would like to give you some rebuttals against the Prime Minister. Firstly, he said that nowadays the developing countries are having the priority in developing their economy, but they are also doing a lot of environmental damages. They are ignoring the environmental problems, but I don't think so. Reality check. No, in China we do have some pollution, but are we really don't care about the environment problems? No, we have a lot of new things come out, new policies come out to save our environment, to develop, while at the same time trying our best to prevent, to reverse those environmental damages done by the development we have already done it. And the second argument I'm going to tell you is that just like the Prime Minister said, now we are share the whole environment together. So we are facing the same problem, and Yeah, we agree with that, and we agree that every individual has the responsibility to do it. But those who have spare time, spare energy, and more time, more energy, more power should have more responsibility in protecting the environment. Sorry, later. And so there are my rebuttals. So now I'm going to tell you my argument. My first argument is developing countries and developed countries have different priority. And in the developing countries, they have more social problems, like in all kinds of things, and especially in the basic living standards of people. Like, let's further illustrate this point. Like to mention the food, in developing countries, there are a lot of people living in poor rural areas. They do not have enough food to eat. They are starving. But in the developed countries, they have more food than needed. And for the shelter, in the developing countries, because of the poor economy and the living standard is also poor, there are, of course, more homeless people, and they cannot wear decent. Well, those developed countries are even talking about fashion. They have a lot of spare time. And the healthcare, in those rural areas in developing countries, they do not have enough doctors, enough medical appliance. They do not have even a hospital. But in developed countries, that kind of healthcare is also abundant, and they have money to pay for everybody's healthcare. And also in the issues of education. So what's the point?
So even though you are not fully prepared to solve the problem instantly, you still have the responsibility. You still should have the awareness of solving the problems.
Yeah, that's just my point. I'm not denying that those developing countries can do whatever damage to the environment while developing. I agree that every country in this world, developed or developing, they all have responsibilities, but not equal, because they have more problems to face. So they have less time and less energy, less money to solve those problems. So they should not take they should not take the equal responsibility. So let's move on my point. Just like what I mentioned, in all kinds of basic living standards in the developing country, the food, the shelter, the clothes, healthcare, education, they're all not as good as the developed countries. So developing countries have more problems than those developed countries, and those problems are urgent. They have to solve it right now, by their time, by their energy, by their money. So that's why we believe that they should have less responsibility. But we don't deny the fact that they do have the responsibility. They are trying their utmost, developing, while at the same time not to do so much damage to the environment, just like what those developing countries do nowadays.
Though they don't have the time, though you claim that they don't have time, but they still have the equal responsibility to face the problem. If they cause damage to the environment, they still need to fix it.
Yeah, they still need to fix it. I'm not denying that, but as long as when they are having more problems, so they should ask for help, like from developed countries. They have more time, more advanced technology, they have more money. So why don't they help those developing countries with those environmental problems? Actually, I'm not denying that they are just ignore about all of environmental problems. So like. In the developing country, they have more problems, so they have to, they have less responsibility. And for those developed countries, just like what I said in answering his POI, they have less problem. Their society is more developed. They have more resources than those developing countries do. So they should help those developing countries in solving this global problem. It's like more power, more responsibility. We are facing the same problem, a global environmental problem. So those who have spare time, spare energy, and spare money, they should stand out, take more responsibility to solve the problem. And just like what I said, first of all, they should be environmental themselves. They should in their own countries, they should take the responsibility. And for those developing countries, I think those developed countries should spare and share their advanced environmental friendly technology, as well as give them help to save the environment. Not just open up some factories of their own brand in the developing countries and making all the profit while blaming that developing countries are making all the pollution. So that is my point. Thank you.
The speaker took 7 minutes, 0 to 7 minutes.
I'd like to thank the Leader of Opposition. Now may I please invite the Deputy Prime Minister, please. You're here.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the motions for today is, you say that the developed and the developing countries should not have an equal responsibility to prevent and reverse the environmental damage. I'd like to say that, how do you know that? For the first, I would like to rebut and I will give my topic in the last, okay? For the first, I would like to rebut the first thing you say that developed countries have spare time, spare responsibilities. So they should take more action, more responsibility. How do you know that they have spare time, spare responsibility? This is your bias. In political thought, this is a paradigm that we think that one is developed or developing country. I don't think this is a good idea. We don't have to put it two parts of the country. We have to make work together and walk together, like work together and walk together. I think you say that the developing country cause the pollution, cause the environmental problem. Let me think together. Developing country make a factory, but when they create product, who use this product? All over the world, people from developing country use this product too. For example, when the developed country create the Victoria's Secret soap, and the developing country buy these products, they use this product too. We share this product too, so we have to share the responsibility too, not just only developing country. You say that there are some homeless people, there are so many people around the world who don't have like a spare technology tools. No, thank you. Have not spare time or like have more budget to do this thing. I think the responsibility doesn't only mean the actions, it means the awareness in your heart. There are all many levels of actors who related in this topic, not just only state. You have to look about the individual, the state, the society, and around the world. You have to put this issue to be in another deeper level. It's not just only state. You have to let the awareness in every people's minds. This will be the great way. Will be the great way to solve this problem. More than talk that the developed country should give more responsibility. It's not. Okay. Okay. And the next thing I would like to talk about is the environmental. Okay. The various levels of the actors will lead the effective way to solve the problems. Can lead the effective way to prevent and reverse the environmental damage. We have more people because we have more people to do against this problem. And we have to work together and join together and push the level of this problem into the world level. Yes.
Before you move on, ma'am.
Okay.
So are you saying that the kids in grade 1 should have an equal responsibility as a kid in grade 6?
Yes. We should have the responsibility in environmental problem. When you take a breath of air, or you got accidents from the air equally, so you have to do the responsibility equally. If you say like that, I would say that the rich people who do everything to preserve the environment, and the poor people who do things that harm the environmental people don't have to the rich should do more responsibility. No, the awareness in your heart should be equal. You have to have awareness in your heart equal. Yes. As I say that there are many level actors in this topic. In my topic, I will put the level into two levels. For the first one, domestic, and the second one is international. In the domestic, the level in domestic is the individual level and the society level. In the individual level, every country should push equally responsibility to their population heart to be awareness of how important the environmental have. When they realize how important it is, they will reverse the environment which damages by themselves. Yes. And in society level, if you work together, unity, we work together. So the effective thing will happen for sure because we have various of information, various of opinions come from many people, and we work together. Yes. In international level, in international, I will talk about the state level and the collaboration between states. Effective in collective policy, like in EU, you have to have the moral high ground in your mind, have a common sense. You see that in EU, we have a same policy in environmental problem, and if you put the attitude in EU, we don't think that you are developed or you're not developed. We think that you are all equals, and we make a policy which is against that problem directly. We don't put about the bad attitude about you and me. We create us. We work together. This is why EU work. You see that every organization in the world have to put these thoughts, that unity to work together. The work together. So this idea will come to change. The change that's sustainable. The change that can change more than environment. That can change and solve more than environmental problem, but can change your daily life, your routine, can change your society, can change the way you do every activity in your life. Okay, and we can gain more people to awareness and to work together in actions to solve this problem. Yeah. And do you say that is that developed countries have high technology, so they have to be main sponsors to put the more responsibility. I'd like to say that there are more hidden agenda than ever thought. Their hidden agenda I would like to say is that every country they work for their security, work for their economy. When they support something, like in France, in EU, if you read the historical book, in France, they support the agriculture part in EU because and they support the EU to pay a subsidy to agricultural part so much because they have more areas. They have most areas of agriculture in Europe. There are so many hidden agenda. The reactors say that I'm a developing country. I'd like to tell you, it's not only me good. There is some hidden agenda inside. So we have to think this topic. So nobody knows that what is developing. We just know that we are all human, so we have to solve these problems together. We have a right together. No, not only human has a right, but the environment has a right as well. So the common sense and the collective responsibility you should bear in mind. I would like to say that one person or one country or whatever you say cannot do the change. We have to work together. We have the same right to have a healthy environment, to have a good quality of life. So we have to have their equally responsibility to check, balance, and renewal and regeneration the environment to be bad for our next generations. That's all. Thank you.
The speaker took 7 minutes, 30 seconds.
I'd like to thank the Deputy Prime Minister. Now invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition to continue the case. We're here.
So, on my right hand, there is a proposition. And they're obviously trying to be hippies today because they are trying to tell us some things that are simply not true and are not actual things in today's world. Firstly, we should all walk on the sun. We should all watch the birds flying. We should all watch the clean rivers flowing. But the point is that 150 years ago, actually the people in developed countries, they just have love that they weren't born 150 years ago. Because those countries were actually developing then. Because those countries were making pollution, they were polluting the environment. Because I believe that the most of the smog was released when the coal was so popular in those, in Great Britain and so on and so on. I believe that from the beginning, that position just isn't fair. So that's the point that I'm going to explain in my the whole speech. So let me start with the negating of whatever they have said. So everybody, they first said that everybody is equal. Yes, we as people are equal, but on the other side, the states are in different standings. They have different standings. They're in different positions. No, thank you. They're in different positions. For example, when we have one that's, I don't know, 10 years old, and we have on the other side one that's 20 years old, we can't give the same responsibility to the one that's just not developed, that's still growing, that's still learning actually. And we have to forgive him some mistakes because he's not developed, he's not mature enough to make such a decisions as some other side developed countries are. And if we go further on, I asked the first speaker of the proposition whether the England was polluting the whole earth when they were using coal so much, when they were polluting the environment with smoke. And yes, he said yes, they were actually polluting China. And did they take the responsibility? Did they take the responsibility for their actions then? No, no, thank you. And we just think that that's not fair. We think that's not fair from the countries that are already developed to expect from countries that are not developed to give them a responsibility. Then on the other side, we didn't give the responsibility to countries that are already developed. And if we go further on, yes, please.
You're just assuming that if someone makes mistakes, we should follow them because they have made mistakes. We can also, it's okay for us to make mistakes. What we think is today is the time for us to have the awareness of protect the environment, to share the equal responsibility to protect the environment.
You have probably on some way you have right, but on the other side, I believe they can make big someone that are going to talk about my argument, what kind of impact will have that on population, on the whole world, when we will give more responsibility to the countries that are actually developing. I will talk about that later, so please remember it, so write it down. So if we go further on, we are going, the first speaker was talking about cheap labor and so on, and actually, yes, those United States, they are making factories in China and India and so on. And we know that the most of, for example, there was a crash when they were making some toxic thing that wasn't able to they were making something that was toxic and they weren't able to have a factory in the USA. They just move it to the countries that need industry, that need that. And we believe that they're not equal. Actually, the countries that are developed are actually abusing the countries that are not developed and putting their factories that are actually polluting the environment there. No, thank you. So we should, I don't know, we should give them some kind of responsibility for mistakes of the developed countries. No, I don't believe that the case is like that. So the second speaker was talking about working together and having that it works perfectly together, but that's not true. You know, because European Union has separate things, because the countries are different, because the cultures are different. And so we can't just say that that's the same. For example, in social status, when your family, when your father earns less money, he just gets more from the country. And I believe that there should be a bit of difference on that level. So let me start with our second argument, they're simply not fair. We are not saying that that China shouldn't be responsible for their action. Of course they have to be. But on the other side, the responsibility wasn't on the side of the United States, Germany, and Great Britain. For God's sake, it's easy for them to live in a safer environment. It's easy for them, no thank you, to safer environment. It's easy for them to have nice rivers. And let's go 150 years back. What was the most polluted city, no thank you, on the earth? It was London. What's the second most polluted city on the earth? It was Detroit. So actually we see that those countries that are now developed have been developing. So they are polluting the environment. And that's simply not fair that we are going to now give the same responsibility to all the countries where we didn't, but on the other side we didn't give responsibility to the countries that were doing that in the past. So what's going to be an impact of that, if we are going to do that? Firstly, there are two options. China is going to, I don't know, if and obviously the countries that are developed will make us some kind of a pressure on China. And that's not good in any case, because I believe that there can be a big race in China, and China and India are powers, so I believe that that's not going to be good for anybody. If we're a bit harsh, they can be a war or something like that. I believe that's possible. On the other side, they are developing, and if we're going to make pressure on China, we're going to just stop the development of China, and they're going to stay on the same position. They're not going to change their policy, because I believe for changing their environment, we need money. And if we're going to stop their development, on the other side, we'll just make even more harm. So, thanks.
The speaker spoke for 7 minutes. Now may I please invite the government witness to continue the case, Mr. Mayor.
Today, I believe that we have to face the fact that not only the Thai students with their t-shirts "I'm a global citizen" are the global citizens, but everybody in that room is a global citizen, and everyone on that earth is a global citizen. And we are more connected, and nowadays we are more connected with each other than we were connected in the past. And our actions from one country or another country, and also my actions, can affect other people, not only my city and my country, but it also affects all the people in the entire world. So that's why we believe that, and that's also very true with ecology and environmental problems, because of pollution. Because we believe that environmental problems are not local. There's a fact that the problems are not local, they're global, and we should be concerned about them. So they affect us all. And if I pollute a glass, and our definition exactly of responsibility was clear, that I pollute one glass of water, I have to fix, or I have to bring back one glass of clean water. So in the same as with countries, if they cause global pollution, they should act globally, and they should take the same responsibility, because I, as a human being, has the right to live in a healthy environment, really don't care if that pollution is caused by China, is caused by European Union, or is caused by any other country in the entire world. And because we believe that developing countries are the rest responsible for pollution in that case, and the developed countries are not more responsible for pollution, we stand on today's government and we propose today's motion. And why we stand for that ideas, I will basically explain on two levels. Firstly, I'll talk on principle level, and secondly, I'll talk about that problem on practical level. So firstly, I believe that in this debate, the crucial point was about responsibility. So we should first talk about that. And both sides today have agreed that we are all facing the same ecological problems, and that we should all be concerned about ecological problems. And what is that proposition today is trying to explain in this debate? That developing countries have exactly the same level of responsibility for these ecological problems. And why is that so? Because all the pollution that is caused in the world affects us all. Because it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if the pollution is caused in China or the pollution is caused in the European Union or anywhere else. It affects us all. And developed countries, yeah, we believe that they are more developed, that they have, but they don't have more responsibility, because money is not the reason that they should have more responsibility. Today, in this debate, the side proposition was talking about duty, about awareness, about moral duty of doing that, about moral duty of preserving environment. And we believe that it doesn't matter where does pollution come from or who pollutes. The only important thing today's debate is who does it affect? In fact, it affects us all. And so we believe that all countries should pay the same price for pollution, and that there is no excuses based on the level of development or money or anything else. And then we're talking about the differences between countries. And you said that China or developing countries cannot afford to be ecological because they still have hungry people. They have no money for for healthcare, for welfare state, and stuff like that. And what we're trying to do in this debate, and what we're trying to explain, that no matter how developed the country is, it has the same responsibility. Because we didn't say that the developing countries are fully prepared to that and they will jump and be ecological in a moment, but they have the same responsibility because they polluted the same, because they polluted some amount of, they polluted some part of the world, and now they should fix it. And also, if your children won't have a clean glass of water, if further generations, or even if you won't have a clean glass of water, will you care who polluted that? No, you won't care who polluted that. And also we believe that it's not fair to the main differences between countries. And also we're talking about rights of the people, because we are all global citizens, and all the people on that planet have the same basic rights. No, thank you. And all the people on that planet breathe the same air. We all drink the same water. It's something that's mine and that's yours, and that's a possession of everyone. And we all have a right to do that. We have all the right to drink clean water, and we have all the right to breathe clean air. And also, that's our right. And some countries are, and everyone who pollutes takes our right away, and everyone have the same responsibility to fix it. Everyone is the same. No, thank you. If someone takes the same amount of my right away, it has the same responsibility to fix it, or he isn't any less guilty if he takes a part of my right away based on its level of development. So then, now I'll move to a practical level of that debate, because the side opposition today was trying to explain that it's impossible for developing countries to be ecological, and it's also some kind of not fair for developing countries to developed countries today are ecological. We're talking about the developed countries today are ecological, but we should ask a question: why are they ecological? They're not ecological. They're not so cool as they look, because they only what they have done is they only moved the dirty industry to developing countries, to China, to India, mostly to Asia, and also they have the responsibility to fix that, because China is producing for them, and also they have they just move the pollution, and that countries also have the responsibility to help the countries, because they cause that pollution, not exactly China. And also that's a solution on a practical level, because it would make positive effects much faster. And also for the end of my speech, I just want to say that our definition of responsibility was very clear. For one glass of polluted water, you need to bring 1 glass of clean water. And we're not talking about practicalities only. We're talking about principles on principle level, and about all duties. And because all the reasons, we beg you to propose the motion. Thank you.
The speaker took 7 minutes, 25 seconds.
I'd like to thank the government rep for his speech. Now I invite the government opposition rep to say here.
First of all, I would like to thank the proposition side for such a great definitions of responsibilities. But therefore, what we are seeing in this debate is they are ignoring the fact that people in developed countries are still in danger. They do not have the basic needs, and they left this point untackled. What we see in today's debate is environmental issues, which is almost the most important things that come into this debate. But in today's debate, I found 3 flashes. The first of my flashes is equal responsibilities, about responsibilities. And the second will be basic needs is that basic needs is really important. And the third point of my class today is the distinction between developing countries and developed nations. First of all, by the responsibility, we believe that the proposition side is really agree with our case. They give the definition of word equal responsibilities that developed countries should be responsible for all their needs. And that is for sure more than the developing countries at the end of the day. The developed countries have more responsibility because they pollute more. So that's why they have more responsibility at the end of the day. Therefore, there is not such an equal responsibility towards environmental damage under our case. We believe that yes, environmental problems is a big problem and everyone should be responsible for it, but not equally. The developed nations, by moral responsibility, they should help the developing nations to achieve such a sustainable development in whatever way they can. Why is it their moral responsibility? Because under our case, under their case, they believe that every bodies in the world should have an equal environmental awareness. And as in our case, we said that those people do not have that, they still have something to worry. We say that it is their moral responsibility to help this kind of nations, and that is why their responsibility is not equal. First of all, to sum up, because they pollute more, firstly, and second of all, because they believe that it is their responsibilities, every people's responsibilities to have environmental awareness. And as we already showed you that people from developing nations do not have the will to do so. At the end of the day, it's all to developed nations and they have more responsibilities at the end of the day. So there is no such an equal responsibilities in this case. Yes, sir.
Equal responsibility means no matter where you make mistakes, no matter who you are making the mistakes, you need to correct the mistakes you have made. That doesn't mean if you make more mistakes, then you have to solve more problems. The basic element of equal responsibility is that you make mistakes and you correct them.
Yeah, you make mistakes, you have to correct them. But as they are already admit that those developed countries make more mistakes, develop more, pollute more, and even go inside the developing countries to pollute in their land. So that's why they have more responsibilities in terms of helping these countries to clean up their mess. So how, let's weigh it up. So what is really equal? There is not equal. At the end of the day, they still have more responsibilities at the end of the day. They need to take more actions at the end of the day. So how that it's equal? We didn't see how is this equal? Let's move on to the second of my class point. Are developing and developed nations are really stand on the same levels? Under their case, it mentions that all of us are standing on the same level. But let me explain how developed nations before they become the developed nations like Americas nowadays. They have passed the process of developing country, and during their time that they are developing, they do not have this kind of policies that the propositions, such as selfish propositions, are establishing up that everybody should have an equal responsibility. And during this time they have no responsibility at all. They can pollute whatever the more they want, but they do not have to solve their mistake at that time. At that point in time, they didn't have to do. But by now, they want to preserve natural resources. They are saying that these countries have to take the equal responsibility to them. But they didn't care whether these people of these countries still have the problems to care. So we think that it is really unfair for developing countries to do so. Why the developed nations have the right to pollute in the past and then has no responsibility at all. But why developing nations who wants to be developed like the developed nations need to take an equal responsibility just like them nowadays. So it is not fair at all. And the developing nations has a lot of problems, has more problems. There are still people dying in the street. There are not in the street of Thailand, there are still some kids was forced to be a prostitute because he or she doesn't have enough money to feed. There are still this kind of problem in society, and there is the priorities of those of the developing nations not the environmental damage. We are not denying that, no sir, we are not denying that these people do not have the responsibility towards the environment, but we say that they should do as much as they can, not as equal as developing nations. If they want to ignore some point, we say that it is fair enough, as in the past, those developed nations didn't care all of the point and didn't responsible for all their environmental damage actions. On the third category of my touch point is basic needs, with environmental damage. Okay, let's me ask you that. Imagine this picture. If you are seeing people dying there because he is so hungry in front of you, you are still that man is pollute a lot, cut down the tree. Will you force this man to go and plant the tree back because he cut down more trees? Like today he doesn't have anything to eat at all, but you are still forcing him to responsible for the actions that he has to do for living, ladies and gentlemen. This man needs to cut the tree for living, and at the end of the day, they want this man to sacrifice their life for the environment. And we say that it is not fair at all. At the end of the day, we found that the opposition side failed to prove to us on how the responsibility is equal. And they are ignoring to save and lift the standard of living of people in the developing country that we care a lot. And we say that environmental responsibility will be achieved in our case, and like standard of living will be better in our case. Therefore, opposition side should win this debate. Thank you.
Opposition whip spoke for 7 minutes, 8 seconds. Now I'd like to invite the opposition reply. Here.
So, thank you all for this great debate. And I will, at the beginning, I will remember you our state. We don't say that the one of the countries should be irresponsible for something. We need to grow up responsibility as much as possible. For example, when we give a similar task to the 6th grade student, 10th grade student, and 12th grade student, do we really expect the same responsibility and the same quality of answers of these students? No, actually no, because they are of different level of education. So the same situation is between the developed and developing states. They have a different level of development. First, as students should pass the grades, and they will gain more knowledge, more responsibilities, and so on. It is like the developing countries should do. Complete the one stage of development and then move to another. And they will gain more benefits and more responsibility for their actions. Also, I want to say, imagine this picture. In the northeastern part of Thailand, the child aged 12 was sold to be a sexual slave because her family is so poor. In South Africa, a 6-year-old boy was left alone in the house, which is super small. He was suffering from malaria, and his family didn't have the money or another opportunity to send him to the hospital. This is what developing world is facing right now. So, developing countries should provide basic needs like healthcare, education, food, houses, as well as we mentioned in all of our speeches. So only after providing the proper living standards, they should gain more responsibility to prevent and resolve environmental damages, which they do. Also, I want to say that it's unfair. It's really unfair to ask such different level of countries to take the same responsibility. Because when developed countries was developing, for example, Great Britain during the Industrial Revolution, no one asked them to take such a big responsibility as proposition asked from developing countries now. If it happens, the developing countries won't have so good chances to be developed as much as developed countries, even if they reach the same level of development. it will take so much time for them, and it is unfair, really unfair. Because when the developed countries was developing, they wasn't stopped by no one. So I ask you to oppose the motion and be on our side. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the opposition for the last speech. Now may I invite the government for the reply speech to hear.
Ladies and gentlemen, they make a wasted land and they call it fairness. Today, we are talking about two issues. This debate becomes messy when they misunderstand what is equal responsibility. And secondly, why we think this awareness of sharing the equal responsibility is so important. So let me clarify, what is equal responsibility? Equal responsibility doesn't mean you should solve the same amounts of problem. It means, is there any excuse for you to be forgiven when you make mistakes? And they say, because in developing country, there's poverty. They don't have time, so we should forgive them. So we should release their responsibility to correct the mistakes. Two layers of analysis. Firstly, is poverty an excuse for you to put the polluted water into the river that will flow to another country? Secondly, is lack of time an excuse for you to produce polluted air without any filtering action? We think you don't have any excuse to harm the environment because of in the name of poverty and lacking of time. Second layers of analysis. Even though you don't have time, even though you don't have money, but if you make mistakes, you need to have a sense of responsibility to correct them. We don't need you to correct mistakes right now, but you should have the sense of responsibility that you cannot be forgiven by other reasons like poverty, like a lack of time. So the sense of responsibility requires you to fix all the mistakes, the problem you have caused in the reality. That's what we call the equal responsibility. No excuse to forgive you. Secondly, they talk about it's unfair for the developing and the developed country to share equal responsibility because in the past, so many evil countries caused so many damaging effects to reality. We think this is not a problem we want to talk. We don't want to produce more and more waste of land on our planet. What we want is to protect the environment on our planet. What we want is the sustainable protection of our environment. So we think it's time for us to stir up the awareness of sharing equal responsibility, regardless of the nationality, regardless of which country you are from. Every individual shares and enjoys the rights that are rendered by the nature. Every individual system, when the human beings cause pollution to the planet, all of other human beings will suffer from it. So we think when you have the awareness and the sense of the responsibility to protect the environment that have been shared equally by your peers, it's the time for us to get better. Because the lack of awareness will push you to make more and more excuses to be forgiven from the outside world. So it is only the ideas, when the ideas are changed, when the awareness has been stirred up, this planet can be better. It's irresponsibility for you to throw out your responsibility, throw out your duty because of some people in the past have done something wrong. So what the ultimate goal we want to achieve is a better environment, is a sustainable development of the healthy planet. So what we want to do is to share the equal responsibility and to stir up the awareness of the importance of this the environmental protection. So we think, based on these reasons, the proposition should absolutely take this debate. Thank you.
like to thank both teams for the speeches in today's debate. Before you cross the floor and shake hands, I would like to thank the judges as well. Judging here with me, we have Maria. We have Elizabeth from China. We have Boris from Slovenia. We have Vietnam from Thailand. I'd like to thank you all, and thank you for a great debate.